Steve's Peekaboo stance is an amazing offensive stance used to deal some massive amounts of pressure and nullify your opponent's jab game in general. This severely limits your opponent's offensive options against you whilst in this stance. This stance is mostly overlooked by the average Steve player, so in this video we are going to talk about what makes Peekaboo so good, what tools you should utilize whilst in this stance, and just some overall tips surrounding Steve's Peekaboo pressure in Tekken 8. So let's jump right into it.
Let's go.
Okay, so first let's talk about the properties of Peekaboo stance. So the stance itself is safe. However, if you are attacked during Peekaboo stance, you will be forced out of stance, and you can also block lows as well by pressing down back. However, if you do press down back whilst in the stance, this leaves you in full crouch. It's another way to cancel out of Peekaboo out of the manual cancel of forward 3+4. You cannot move whilst in this stance outside of manual input, so stuff like Steve sway left and right. You can duck out of Peekaboo stance with forward 3 or forward 4. You can also albatross spin out of Peekaboo by pressing 3+4 as well. Other than that, you cannot backdash, you cannot forward dash out of this stance. You can only hold forward for a very slow walk, which is just not worth it. So it's a very safe and versatile stance that allows you to cancel out of it in multiple ways. So in terms of risk, you won't really be thinking about getting punished all that much whilst in Peekaboo stance. Next, let's talk about some of the tools that you should prioritize for your Peekaboo offense, starting with his jab. So Steve has a 1-2-1 jab from Peekaboo, and his jabs come out at 12 frames. The regular jab comes out at 10 frames, but whilst in Peekaboo, Steve jabs come out at 12 frames. So the one jab on its own is -2 on block and +9 on hit. The 1-2 jab is 0 on block and +8 on hit, whilst the full string 1-2-1, or the last part of the string, is unsafe at -13 on block. However, it does launch on counter hit, which is very strong, as we'll talk about later. It also can be slightly delayed, so his jab pressure in Peekaboo is really strong. Then we have his Peekaboo 2, which is a 14 frame high that's only -3 on block and +2 on hit. But what makes this move good, and this is the reason why people are gonna be afraid of you when you are in Peekaboo stance, is because it's a counter hit launcher firstly, and it's also a punch parry. Like, this is a god move. It kind of does everything, with the only downside being its range and the fact that it's a high. This move is strong, it's godlike, and I'll get into it later in the video. Peekaboo forward 2-1 is a mid string that's +1 on block. It looks massively plus, but it's only +1 on block. However, you can be interrupted midway through by jabs or like a 13 frame mid, so you be very careful when using this string. You won't actually rely too much on the whole string. You only be using forward 2 on its own for the most part. So forward 2 on its own is -13. It's technically unsafe, but because of the pushback, not many characters will be able to punish this, so you should be okay for the most part. What makes forward 2 so good is firstly it goes under highs. It does high crush or goes under jabs, and that it also crushes dick jab, which is going to be very important for Steve's Peekaboo pressure, as I will cover later in the video. You can get a guaranteed Sonic Fang after Peekaboo forward 2. You have to manually cancel out of Peekaboo stance, so Peekaboo forward 2, then cancel with forward 3+4 into Sonic Fang guaranteed. It's pretty difficult. Takes quite a lot of practice, but it's very strong, especially in hit, because whilst in hit, Sonic Fang becomes a launcher. So Peekaboo forward 2 into Sonic Fang into hit dash becomes a full combo or full launch for some massive damage. You won't really be using forward 2 all that much, but it does play a part in Steve's Peekaboo pressure, so look forward to that. And then we have his Peekaboo down forward 1 string. So Peekaboo down forward 1 on its own is safe at -9 on block and only +2 on hit. The full string down forward 1-2-1-1 is unsafe at -13 on block. However, the string can be delayed and adds up to his mix-up game, which we'll talk about again later in the video. The second and third strings can be delayed, and they are both unsafe at -10 and -11 respectively. If the second hit lands on counter hit, the entire string is guaranteed if you don't delay the rest of the string. So down forward 1, and then the second hit landing on counter hit does guarantee you every other hit, so very strong. Also gives you a guaranteed down back 2 on knockdown. He does have a variation to the string. He has down forward 1-2, which is mid-high as well. So you have layers on layers of mix-ups with the string. So his down forward and pressure game is also very annoying and pretty strong in my opinion. Very underrated. Peekaboo down 1 is a low poke you're going to be using to absolutely annoy and abuse the hell out of your opponent. This low is only +2 on hit, might not seem like a lot, but it sets up so much stuff for Steve whilst in the stance. It's also only -12 on block, so you don't really put yourself at risk all that much whilst in the stance with that particular low. Then you have one of Steve's Peekaboo launchers, Peekaboo down forward 2, which is unsafe at only -10 though, which is pretty good. But what's very good about this launcher is the fact that it actually is an elbow. Considering how susceptible Steve is to parries in this game, it's actually good having an elbow as a launcher. He also has his Shoryuken, which is Peekaboo up forward 2, another of his launchers, although this one is hella risky at -15, so it's launch punishable on block. However, what's good about it is that it does go under highs, it high crashes, so if you have some really good reads from this, it's actually worth using. But honestly, at -15, you won't see that many Steve players use this move that much, because yeah, the risk is just a little too high. And finally, we have his 10 count throw, an 11 frame throw that does 45 damage. Really important as well for Steve's Peekaboo pressure. Now, these aren't the only moves he has in Peekaboo, but these are the ones you will prioritize heavily. And this is mostly for the highest of levels. He does have many other tools from Peekaboo, stuff like down 2, his big chunky low. He has a backswing blow, he has Peekaboo forward 1+2, but to prioritize for the highest level and bring the most out of his Peekaboo pressure, he will focus on these particular moves. So now that we've broken down the properties of these moves, let's talk about his Peekaboo pressure and how you want to implement this in your game plan. Okay, so first let's start with his classic setup. Peekaboo jabs into Peekaboo 2. So earlier in the video I did say Peekaboo nullifies a lot of the opponent's options and mostly their jab options. They're not allowed to jab against Steve easily because of Peekaboo 2 being both a counter hit 2 and a punch parry. So Peekaboo jab is what you use as an initiative. It's kind of like a setup or a frame trap for both the parry and the counter hit launcher as well. So Peekaboo jabs into Peekaboo 2 is not a frame trap. Keep that in mind because the jabs do come out at 12 frames and the one jab on its own is -2, right? And Peekaboo 2 comes out at 14 frames. So one jab into Peekaboo 2 is not a frame trap at all. But what this is a very good setup for the punch parry. You are looking for the opponent's jabs after this. So basically, if they throw out any jab after you do one jab into Peekaboo 2 or two jabs into Peekaboo 2, you will get a punch parry off of this. If they do anything slower than 16 frames or anything that isn't anything that isn't a jab that's slower than 16 frames, they get counter hit. So basically 10 frame jabs, down forward 1, 15 frame jabs, any jab you get the punch parry off. Anything slower than that, you get a counter hit launcher. So the only characters that can beat this are characters that have really fast kicks, right? Because you can't parry the kicks, you can only parry jabs. So for example, Horang's 4-3 is a very good counter to the setup, right? Steve jabs into Peekaboo 2, Horang can interrupt that setup with 4-3. Same applies to Alisa's down forward 4. Her down forward 4 comes out at 12 frames, which is very fast. So if you do Peekaboo 1 or Peekaboo 1-2 into Peekaboo 2 for the counter hit setup or the punch parry setup, if Alisa throws out a down forward 4, she completely counters this setup. So it's very strong against people that love to jab a lot after your Peekaboo jabs as well. The other thing people use to beat this setup is going low, right? They either do dick jab or they either go for like a toe kick or a low poke. You have certain options to counter this. Earlier we spoke about Peekaboo forward 2, which goes under highs and crushes dick jabs as well. So if your opponent is dick jabbing a lot after you do Peekaboo jab or Peekaboo both jabs, Peekaboo forward 2 is a very good counter to that. However, this won't beat low pokes. It's like a down from an opponent. This will not crush a down for it, only specifically crushes dick jab. So that will be a counter for that. If I start going for down 4, you can either start swaying or doing like an up forward 1. You can do the Shoryuken, but that's only after a hard read. Remember, the Shoryuken is very risky, right? Very risky. So you're better off doing like an up forward one to go over their low and go back into range, go right back in the peekaboo pressure. Those are the best two counters to their low pokes during this peekaboo setup. You can also actually manually cancel peekaboo, right? Holding down back puts you into full crouch, block their low. Remember, downfalls are very risky in this game. Downfalls are launch punishable. So if you have a very good read with your opponent spamming downfall after your peekaboo jabs, just cancel your peekaboo to block, then punish that low. If you want, you can cancel it, then like buffer low parry and get that low parry off. That's the idea behind implementing your jabs for that peekaboo 2 setup. Everyone that faces Steve knows about this setup. They'll be ready for this, right? So you have to always look for the counters that they might have already planned for you. Another way people tend to beat this setup is sidestep duck. Sidestep duck is very effective against Steve because remember, peekaboo 2 is a high and peekaboo down 1 is a low. These are like the go-to options you are going to be using as a Steve player after peekaboo jabs. Mostly when you do peekaboo 1 jab or peekaboo 2 jabs into peekaboo 2, they always go for a quick sidestep duck, right? Quick sidestep duck, which is a very good strategy. It's a very effective strategy because it beats both options, the low and the high as well. So to do this, you have to now start throwing out certain mids like down forward 1 as well. So peekaboo jabs into down forward 1, peekaboo jabs into down forward 2 as well once in a while because it is -10, remember, the launcher. You're trying to catch them sidestep ducking, right? Another thing I love to do is peekaboo jabs into duck. So you go for like a peekaboo 1 jab, then forward 3, duck, then cancel the duck into full crouch and go for another full crouch down forward 1. Full crouch down forward 1 actually puts you into peekaboo. I'll talk about this later in the video as well, so keep that in mind. It's a very good option to get back in the opponent's face. People also tend to backdash a lot to get out of this setup because peekaboo 2 does not have that much range. So peekaboo jab is the peekaboo 2. Korean backdash is a very good option or a very good counter to this as well. So using the duck takes you back in range, right? Peekaboo 1, peekaboo 1, 2. Okay, you're backdashing. Okay, I'm a duck in your face. Cancel. Go right back into the peekaboo pressure. Remember, he also has that 1-2-1 string, which adds another layer of mix-up. If they're mashing too many buttons after peekaboo 1, 2, doing the full string is another good option. Sidestep duck doesn't become an option anymore. And if they're mashing like dig jabs and downforce after your peekaboo jabs, then doing the full string is a very good option as well. So this is Steve 101 when it comes to peekaboo pressure. The jabs and peekaboo 2 and down 1 as well, which I'll talk about next, are like best friends, yin and yang. This is how you get your peekaboo pressure going. That peekaboo 2 is what everyone just does not want to deal with, right? After jabs, it's all mix-up games, and this is why they are always at the defensive when you are in peekaboo. They can't really challenge you all that much unless they're really smart and making hard reads. It's very difficult to deal with the string, very, very strong. Which brings us to his peekaboo down 1 low, which works almost exactly the same as his peekaboo jabs, except it's a low. So this is what you use to bully your opponent after you condition them not to press buttons after peekaboo jabs. So okay, they're scared of the peekaboo 2, so they're not pressing any buttons anymore. Okay, down 1, peekaboo down 1, I'll keep going low. I'll keep going low, bro. You're pressing buttons, boom, peekaboo down 2. Because it works the same as peekaboo jabs into peekaboo 2, right? Because peekaboo down 1 as well is +2. Peekaboo jab 1 jab is -2, peekaboo 2 jabs is 0 on block, peekaboo down 1 is +2. So it's actually even a better frame trap or setup for the peekaboo 2. So peekaboo down 1 to peekaboo 2, exactly the same as peekaboo jabs into peekaboo 2. You're not pressing buttons anymore. Okay, down 1, peekaboo down 1, down 1. Are you ducking now? This is what you want. You want to condition them to start ducking against you whilst you are in peekaboo. If they're ducking, start throwing out the peekaboo forward 2s, the peekaboo down forward 1 mix-ups, right? The peekaboo down forward 2 launchers. That's the whole idea. Again, if you're going for dig jabs, downfalls, low pokes, you have the sways, you have the up forward 1, you have the peekaboo forward 2. For the dig jab, you can actually cancel your peekaboo by holding down back, block the low and punish them. Exactly the same as his peekaboo jabs. So this is what you use to bully and annoy your opponent. And if they keep backdashing again, you can use the forward 3 duck and go back into range. Forward 3 duck cancel, full crouch down forward 1, go back into peekaboo, back to square 1. Peekaboo setups, peekaboo mind games, right? It's just so This is one of the most fun things about Steve, his peekaboo pressure. I don't understand why most lower rank Steve players or like the average Steve players don't use peekaboo, guys. This can be so annoying, especially against opponents that don't really have really good high crash moves, like Brian, for example. When you are in Brian's face with peekaboo, oh my god, that character can struggle, right? They have to make a correct read, they have to duck at the right time, they have to challenge at the right time, throw out the moves at the right time, because again, that peekaboo 2 exists. It counters so much stuff being a punch parry. Like, they have to deal with all this. They have to be on the defensive. All the time Steve is in peekaboo, they have to be on the defensive, which is not really easy to do against this character whilst he is in this hella good stance. So that's basically down one. What you use to bully your opponent if they are not pressing buttons, start forcing them to duck. Are they ducking? Start going mids into down forward 1 pressure, etc, etc. So because peekaboo down forward 1 does have some mix-up potential to it, you can use it as a good setup for peekaboo 2 as well. So for example, just something basic, down forward 1, peekaboo down forward 1 has peekaboo down forward 1-1, which is mid-mid, second being unsafe at -10, remember that, and down forward 1-2, which is mid-high. So now the opponent has to guess between either you going for the mid or just doing the high as well. So sometimes it can be good to do peekaboo down forward 1, then peekaboo 2, right? Just to catch them slacking. Sometimes they just randomly mash, and this can be good for you because you can land that counter hit. So he does have layers of mix-ups to this. You can also slow down the second and third hit of down forward 1-1. So you can do like down forward 1-1 into peekaboo 2. You can do down forward 1-1-1, down forward 1-1-2 into peekaboo 2, right? Down forward 1-2, just finish the whole string. So there are some layers to mind games to down forward 1 as well, but this depends mostly on the reads you have on your opponent. So just read what you're doing after you do peekaboo down forward 1. What's your first initial reaction? Are they twitch ducking? Okay, that's good for you. So you can do peekaboo down forward 1 into peekaboo 2. Okay, peekaboo down forward 1, bully them with peekaboo down 1, go low, right? Just mix it up, just keep on pressuring the opponent. When you are in this stance, you are at an advantage. The risk is not that high because the opponent is unsure whether you're going to go for either peekaboo down 1 or peekaboo 2. And you do have that pressure with the mids as well. Sometimes it's finish the whole string, delay the whole string. It's all about mix-ups and mind games with this stance, and down forward 1 is that string for you if you want to implement some really good mind games. Okay, so what are the best ways of getting into peekaboo with Steve, or when is the right time to get into peekaboo with this character? Now, for the second part, the best answer to that question is there isn't really a wrong time to go into peekaboo. Like, honestly, you can just do it anytime you want. Of course, if your opponent has rage, you have to be very careful, but other than that, dude, if you want to be in peekaboo, just go into peekaboo. It's that good. It's a safe stance, has very safe pokes. You can easily back away, you can easily cancel. It's very versatile, not that risky. Go into peekaboo anytime you want. So the easiest way, of course, is manual entry. Just forward 3+4, go into peekaboo. I love manual entry because people don't expect it. They usually expect you to do certain moves that can put you into peekaboo. For example, like a running 2 into manual peekaboo 2, I love doing that a lot. I love going for manual peekaboo jabs, right? Yeah, moving in the neutral, sidestepping, moving around, boom, manual peekaboo into jabs, manual peekaboo into down 1. Manual entry is very good with peekaboo as well. Don't just rely on the moves that force you to go into peekaboo. That's the most predictable way you can go into peekaboo. Yes, it's an option and you will be using it as well because it's good, but manual peekaboo entry is the best in my opinion. Then, like I said, the moves that force you or that give you the option to cancel into peekaboo, he does have a few of them. For example, Albatross 3+4, his spin. If you hold forward, you can go into peekaboo. Now this is good because you can mix it up with his low in the mid from Albatross spin. Sometimes people don't expect it, they just keep blocking because they expect you to go low or to go mid. So you can go for like flicker jabs into Albatross cancel, then cancel back into peekaboo. Like, honestly, the more you start flowing with Steve, the more comfortable you'll be with transitioning into stance with this character. And this is very safe, guys. It's very safe unless they know what you're up to, right? You can't just Albatross spin your opponent's face all the time for free. If they expect you to do that, they will punish you for doing stuff like that. His 1-2-1-2 jabs, of course, you can do 1-2-3, you hold forward to go into peekaboo, right? You can hold back to go into flicker cancel. There are mix-ups to this. I won't talk about that because I don't want to make this video too long. You can check out my full Steve guide. I do talk about this, his mix-ups from 1 to 1. So you can do 1 to 1, then hold forward to go into Peekaboo, go for like an immediate Peekaboo 2 for like a good setup, right? The punch parry or the counter hit, or go like Peekaboo down 1 for the low. He has 2-1 as well, just like 1 to 1, right? 2-1, hold forward to go into Peekaboo. He has a full string 2-1-2, which is unsafe. It can be delayed as well. So now you have a mix-up whether you're going to finish the whole string or you're going to cancel the second hit into Peekaboo. So that's the idea. Then of course, we've spoken about full crouch down forward 1, which forces you into Peekaboo as well. He also has forward 2. He has mixes from forward 2. You can do forward 2-2 to go into Lionheart. You can do forward 2-1, hold back to go into flicker stance, or hold forward to go into Peekaboo. As again, these are moves that actually give you the option to go into Peekaboo. However, there are mix-ups that are conditioned with the string, so it does have some risk to it. You have to land the high as well to go into Peekaboo, so you have to be very, very careful. But for me, manual Peekaboo entry is going to be very good. But landing moves like 2-1 on hit or 1-2-1 on counter hit, then going into Peekaboo is a very good advantage for you, or it's very strong for you as well, because you are in plus frames. It is still your turn. You can implement your Peekaboo 2 and Peekaboo jab setups as well from that. So very, very strong, guys. Manual entry again is number 1 in my opinion. So there you have it, guys, a summarized video of why you must implement Steve Fox Peekaboo pressure in your kit as well. Now, sorry, I felt like I was rushing through the video. Of course, I didn't want to make this guide too long. In fact, I didn't want to make it a guide at all. I just wanted to talk about what makes Peekaboo so good. But because I love this character so much, it almost ended up into a guide. It's like 20 minutes long, for Christ's sakes. But overall, I really hope you got something from this. I try by all means to explain things as much as I can. English is not my first language like at all. So if I mislead you guys by just a bit, I am really sorry. But I do try my best and I hope you got something out of this guide. So if you enjoyed my guide, please check out my other Steve content. I am a Steve main. I did make a complete Steve guide as well. So I talk about most of this stuff in that main guide. So don't forget to check it out. And yeah, like, subscribe, and do the YouTube jazz, boys. GG and take care.